The letter that reopened everything. The Ridgemont County District Attorney's Office hummed with the usual Monday morning activity. Case files stacked in neat towers. Phones ringing in careful syncopation. The familiar smell of burnt coffee and legal briefs. District Attorney Noah Harrington hung his coat, nodded to his secretary, and entered his corner office, the same office he'd occupied for 12 years now. The polished oak desk, the law degrees on the wall, the view overlooking the courthouse square, all of it spoke of authority, certainty, stability. The single white envelope sitting in the center of his desk did not. This came by certified mail on Saturday, his secretary said from the doorway. The mailroom called me at home. Thought you should see it first thing. Noah frowned. No return address. None. But it's been through security screening. He picked it up, noting its weight. Too heavy for a letter. Too light for a threat. Thanks, Diane. Alone, Noah sliced the envelope open with his grandfather's letter opener, a ritual he'd maintained through 20 years of legal practice. Inside, he found a folded document and a small plastic evidence bag containing what appeared to be a silver chain. The document unfurled to reveal a typed letter, 3 handwritten pages, and several photocopied police reports with notes scrawled in the margins. Dear District Attorney Harrington, the typed letter began. 15 years ago, you prosecuted Marcus Jackson for the murder of 9-year-old Lily Carson. You won. He's been in Westerly State Prison ever since, serving life without parole. You built your career on that conviction. Noah's pulse quickened. The Carson case had indeed been his breakthrough, a tragic, high-profile murder that had shocked the small city of Ridgemont. The evidence had been overwhelming. Marcus Jackson, then 22, had been placed at the scene by multiple witnesses. The child's blood was found in his car. The silver necklace that Lily always wore was discovered in Jackson's apartment. I am writing to inform you that Marcus Jackson is innocent, the letter continued. I know this because I was there that night. I am enclosing the actual necklace that belonged to Lily Carson. The one entered into evidence at trial was a replica. Test this one, you'll find the truth. It was signed simply, someone who can no longer stay silent. Noah stared at the evidence bag, his legal mind already cataloging possibilities. A hoax, a distraction, some twisted attempt to reopen a closed case. Or the truth. What would you do if your greatest achievement was built on someone else's greatest injustice? The 3 handwritten pages appeared to be a detailed confession, including specifics about Lily's abduction that had never been released to the public. The photocopied police reports were from the original investigation, but the notes in the margins pointed out inconsistencies, witness contradictions, and evidence gaps that Noah had never considered, or had chosen not to consider. He reached for his phone, then stopped. If this was legitimate, if there was even a fraction of a chance that Marcus Jackson had spent 15 years in prison for a crime he didn't commit, then Noah needed to proceed carefully. This wasn't just about one case. This was about every case he'd prosecuted since, about the reputation he'd built as a fair but tough prosecutor who never got it wrong, about his upcoming campaign for state attorney general. One phone call could set in motion a process he couldn't control, but the alternative was to do nothing, to lock the envelope in a drawer and pretend it had never arrived. Noah Harrington had built his career on seeking justice, but until this moment, justice and conviction had always been the same thing in his mind. What if they weren't? The buried evidence. 2 days later, Noah sat in his parked car outside the Ridgemont Police Department's evidence warehouse, rain drumming on the roof. He'd told no one about the letter, not his chief deputy, not the current police chief, certainly not his campaign manager, who would have gone apoplectic at the mere suggestion of reopening the case that had made Noah Harrington a household name in Pennsylvania legal circles. He needed to see the original evidence himself before involving anyone else. Inside, Officer Mendez led him through rows of metal shelving filled with sealed boxes, the physical archive of Ridgemont's criminal history. Here we go, Mendez said, pulling a box marked Carson L. Homicide 2009. Need any help with it? Noah shook his head. Just need a room to review it. Sure thing, Mr. Harrington. Evidence room B is open. Take as long as you need. The windowless room contained only a table, 2 chairs, and a relentless fluorescent light. Noah pulled on nitrile gloves and began methodically unpacking the box, arranging the items exactly as they'd been presented at trial. Photographs of the crime scene, the torn blue backpack found near the body, soil samples, fingerprint cards, DNA reports. And there, in a small evidence bag, the silver necklace with a heart-shaped locket, the one that had helped secure Marcus Jackson's conviction when it was found under his mattress. Noah held it up, comparing it to the one from the anonymous letter. They appeared identical, down to the small inscription on the back, "To Lily, forever loved." But they couldn't both be real. When 2 identical pieces of evidence exist, at least one must be a lie. But which one, and who planted it? He turned to the original case files, reading with fresh eyes. The detective's reports, witness statements, his own trial notes, patterns began to emerge that he hadn't seen or hadn't wanted to see 15 years earlier. The 3 eyewitnesses who placed Jackson near the school had all been interviewed by the same detective, Victor Ramirez, now retired. Their initial statements contained inconsistencies that were mysteriously resolved in later interviews. The blood evidence in Jackson's car was minimal, just 3 small drops on the passenger seat. No blood was found in the trunk where the prosecution claimed the body had been transported. Most troubling, there was a supplemental report filed by a junior detective that Noah had never seen. It documented an interview with a convenience store clerk who remembered seeing Lily Carson with an adult male on the evening of her disappearance, a man who did not match Jackson's description. That report had never been entered into evidence. It had never been shared with the defense. Noah's stomach tightened. In legal terms, this was a Brady violation, the prosecution's failure to disclose potentially exculpatory evidence. The kind of violation that got convictions overturned and prosecutors disbarred. Had someone deliberately hidden this report, or had it simply been misfiled, overlooked in the chaos of a high-profile investigation? Either way, Noah was now aware of it, and awareness created legal and ethical obligations he couldn't ignore. As he carefully repacked the evidence box, his phone buzzed with a text from his campaign manager. Great news. Latest poll shows you up 8 points for AG primary. Press conference tomorrow at 10? Noah stared at the message. His political future, everything he'd worked toward, rested on his reputation as a prosecutor who got it right. Reopening the Carson case would put that reputation at risk. Even suggesting that Marcus Jackson might be innocent would be perceived as admitting a catastrophic failure. But a man might have spent 15 years in prison for a crime he didn't commit. Noah texted back, "Need to reschedule, something's come up." He returned the evidence box to Officer Mendez, drove to his office, and locked the door. Then he pulled out the anonymous letter again and dialed the number for the State Bureau of Investigation. "This is District Attorney Noah Harrington from Ridgemont County," he said when the call connected. "I need to speak with someone about a possible wrongful conviction, and I need absolute discretion. The investigation begins." Special Agent Layla Vega of the State Bureau of Investigation didn't look impressed by Noah's office, his credentials, or his reputation. She sat across from him, her dark hair pulled back in a no-nonsense ponytail, her expression professionally neutral as she examined the anonymous letter and necklace. "You verified this is different from the one in evidence?" she asked. "They appear identical, but yes, there are now 2 necklaces when there should only be 1. And you verified the handwriting doesn't match Jackson's?" Noah nodded. "I checked it against his original signed statement." Vega made a note in her small black notebook. "Why bring this to the SBI? This is your jurisdiction. You could reopen the investigation yourself." Noah chose his words carefully. "The anonymous letter implies police misconduct, possibly prosecutorial misconduct as well, though I wasn't aware of any evidence suppression at the time. The SBI has more independence to investigate without conflicts of interest." "You mean without threatening your campaign for Attorney General?" Noah felt heat rise in his face. "I mean without the appearance of bias in either direction. If Jackson is innocent, we need to know. If he's guilty, we need to be certain." Vega studied him for a moment. "Let me be clear, Mr. Harrington. If I take this case, I go where the evidence leads. I won't protect reputations, yours, the police department's, or anyone else's." "I understand. Do you? Because from where I sit, you have 2 choices. Either you're the crusading prosecutor willing to right a past wrong no matter the personal cost, or you're the ambitious politician trying to get ahead of a scandal that might derail your career. Which one is it? In a legal system built on absolute certainty, what happens when doubt creeps in? Can one letter unravel 15 years of justice?" "Both," Noah admitted. "I want the truth, but I'd be lying if I said I'm not thinking about the implications for my career." Something in Vega's expression shifted slightly, not quite approval, but perhaps a recognition of honesty. "Fair enough," she said. "I'll need complete access to all case files, evidence and personnel involved in the original investigation, and I'll need your written authority as DA to pursue this without interference." "You'll have it. One more thing," Vega added, rising to leave. "Have you informed Marcus Jackson's attorney about this development?" Noah hesitated. "Not yet. I wanted to verify if there's any substance to these claims first." "That's not your decision to make," Vega said flatly. "Jackson has a right to know that potentially exculpatory evidence has emerged. His attorney should be informed immediately." She was right, and Noah knew it. But contacting Jackson's lawyer would make this real, would set in motion a process that couldn't be contained. "I'll call his attorney today," he said. After Vega left, Noah pulled the Carson case file from his cabinet. Marcus Jackson's court-appointed attorney had been David Chen, a competent but overworked public defender. A quick internet search revealed Chen had died 3 years ago. Jackson would have a new attorney now, likely someone from the Innocence Project, or a similar organization that handled appeals for long-term inmates claiming wrongful conviction. Noah's secretary buzzed him. "Your campaign manager is on line 1. Says it's urgent about tomorrow's press conference." "Tell him I'll call back," Noah said, already dialing the number for Westerly State Prison. 20 minutes and several transfers later, Noah had his answer. Marcus Jackson was represented by Sophia Washington of the Equal Justice Initiative. Her office was in Philadelphia, 2 hours away. Noah could have called, should have called, probably. Instead, he cleared his afternoon calendar and drove to Philadelphia. The truth emerges. Over the next 2 weeks, Noah found himself living a double life. Publicly, he continued his duties as district attorney and maintained his campaign schedule. Privately, he devoted every spare moment to the Carson case, working alongside Agent Vega to re-examine evidence, track down witnesses, and uncover the truth. The investigation progressed with quiet intensity. Vega sent both necklaces to the state lab, interviewed the original detectives, and began constructing a timeline of the original investigation. The breakthrough came when they located Teresa Diaz, a rookie detective during the original case. She confirmed filing a witness report that contradicted the prosecution's theory, a report that mysteriously vanished from the case file. Ramirez was invested in the Jackson theory. Diaz explained, "When my report didn't fit his narrative, I was a rookie. I didn't feel I could push back." "Did you tell anyone else?" Noah asked. "The DA's office. I spoke with an assistant district attorney. I can't remember his name, but he took notes." Noah felt a cold weight settle in his stomach. One of his assistants might have received this information and failed to disclose it, or deliberately suppressed it. The lab results confirmed their fears. The necklace from evidence had no DNA. The one from the letter had Lily Carson's DNA. The real necklace had been switched, and a replica planted in Jackson's apartment. When the foundation of justice begins to crack, how far will the damage spread? One mistake, 15 years ago, threatens to bring down careers, reputations, and the very notion of certainty in the courtroom. Noah arranged to meet Marcus Jackson at Westerly State Prison. The meeting room contained only a metal table bolted to the floor and 2 chairs on opposite sides. No windows, no privacy. Jackson entered in shackles, though the guard removed them before leaving. At 37, he looked older than his years, his face etched with the unmistakable weariness of long-term incarceration. "District Attorney Harrington," he said, "never thought I'd see you again." "Mr. Jackson, your attorney says you have information about the anonymous letter." Jackson studied him. 15 years I've been saying I didn't kill that little girl. 15 years of appeals, petitions, letters to anybody who might listen. Now suddenly you're interested. Why?" "The evidence suggests you might have been wrongfully convicted. I'm trying to determine the truth." "The truth?" Jackson gave a bitter laugh. "The truth is you built your career on putting me away, made yourself a name. And now what? You're having an attack of conscience?" Noah met his gaze directly. "If a mistake was made, I want to correct it." "A mistake?" Jackson leaned forward. "What happened to me was no mistake, it was deliberate. That's what I'm trying to determine. If you have information about the letter, now's the time to share it." Jackson sat back. 2 months ago I got a letter from Victor Ramirez's daughter, Karina. She wrote that her father had died and left a confession with his lawyer. The confession detailed how he'd framed me for Lily Carson's murder. Noah tried to mask his surprise. "Ramirez is dead? When?" "Cancer. 3 months ago. Karina found evidence in his personal effects, including a silver necklace he'd kept all these years. She said she was going to make it right. Did you keep this letter?" Jackson nodded. "It's with my legal papers. Miss Washington has a copy." "Why didn't you tell her about this connection to the anonymous letter?" "Because I wanted to see your face when you heard it," Jackson said simply. "I wanted to know if you were part of it." "Part of what?" "The frame-up. Ramirez might have planted the evidence, but you were the prosecutor. I needed to know if you knew what he did." The accusation hung in the air between them. Had Noah been so focused on winning that he'd ignored inconsistencies? Had his ambition blinded him to the possibility that Ramirez was building a case on fabricated evidence? "I didn't know," Noah said finally. "If Ramirez manipulated evidence, he did it without my knowledge. But if I missed something, if I failed to question the case thoroughly enough, then I bear responsibility for that." Jackson studied him, as if weighing the truth of his words. "If I get out of here, it won't be the end. It'll be the beginning. The beginning of finding out why Ramirez targeted me, and who really killed that little girl. If the evidence proves your innocence, I'll do everything in my power to expedite your release. And your career. What happens to the great Noah Harrington when people learn he sent an innocent man to prison?" It was the question Noah had been asking himself since the envelope arrived on his desk. "Whatever happens to my career is less important than making this right," he said. Jackson nodded. "Talk to Karina Ramirez. She knows more than she put in that letter to me. She knows why her father did what he did." As Noah left the prison, his phone buzzed with a text from Agent Vega. "DNA results back on blood from Jackson's car, not Lily Carson's. We need to talk ASAP." The case that had seemed so solid 15 years ago was unraveling thread by thread. The confession. Karina Ramirez lived in a small apartment above a bookstore in Ridgemont's downtown district. At 32, she had her father's sharp features and watchful eyes. But where Victor Ramirez had projected absolute certainty, his daughter seemed weighted with doubt. She wasn't surprised when Noah and Agent Vega appeared at her door.
"I was wondering when you'd come," she said, letting them in. "I assume Marcus told you about my letter." "He did," Noah confirmed. "We need to see the confession your father left, and the original necklace if you have it." "I sent the necklace anonymously," Karina admitted, "but I have the confession here." She removed a sealed envelope from a drawer and handed it to Vega. "My father's attorney gave this to me after the will was read. Said Dad had left instructions for me to decide what to do with it." Vega opened the envelope and removed several handwritten pages. She and Noah read in silence, the only sound the ticking of an old clock on Karina's wall. Victor Ramirez's confession was detailed and damning. He admitted to planting evidence against Marcus Jackson, pressuring witnesses to identify him, and suppressing any leads that pointed away from him as a suspect. But the most shocking revelation was his motive. "Raymond Willis was my confidential informant," Ramirez had written. "He provided information that helped me make multiple high-profile drug busts. When witnesses placed him near the Carson girl the night she disappeared, I made a choice to protect my cases and my career. I diverted suspicion to Jackson, who had a record, and no alibi. I told myself he was probably guilty of something else anyway." Noah looked up from the pages, stunned. He framed Jackson to protect an informant who went on to kill other children. What defines a just outcome? When those sworn to uphold the law twist it to serve their own ends, who bears the burden of restoring truth? Karina nodded, her expression a mix of shame and resolution. "My father was obsessed with his conviction record. Those drug busts made his career. He couldn't risk having his star informant implicated in a child's murder. And the necklace?" Noah asked. "How did he have the real one?" "He took it from evidence before it was cataloged, replaced it with an identical one he bought. He kept the real one as insurance, maybe, or a trophy." "There's something else you should know," Karina added. "My father didn't act entirely alone. His confession mentions a prosecutor who helped bury that witness statement from Detective Diaz, someone named Sullivan." Noah felt as if the floor had dropped out beneath him. Michael Sullivan had been his chief assistant prosecutor on the Carson case. Now a federal judge, Sullivan had been Noah's mentor, his most important professional reference, the man who had championed Noah's rise through the ranks of Pennsylvania's legal establishment. "Thank you for coming forward," Vega said. "It couldn't have been easy." "Easy?" Karina's laugh held no humor. "My father sent an innocent man to prison and let a child killer go free. Nothing about this is easy, but it's necessary." As they left the apartment, Noah's phone lit up with messages. His campaign manager, his chief deputy, several reporters. Word was getting out. "What now?" he asked Vega as they reached their cars. "Now we verify everything in Ramirez's confession. Check his storage unit. Track Willis's movements after the Carson murder. Build a case for Jackson's exoneration." She fixed him with a penetrating look. "And you need to decide what you're going to do about Sullivan." Noah nodded, the weight of it all pressing down on him. "I'll call Washington, let her know what we found. She can start the exoneration process for Jackson. And your campaign." Noah hadn't thought that far ahead, but the answer came with surprising clarity. "The campaign doesn't matter now. What matters is fixing this." That evening, Noah sat in his home office, the Carson case files spread across his desk. His phone rang, a number he didn't recognize. "It's Michael Sullivan," said the familiar voice of his former mentor. "We need to talk." "Not on the phone." Noah's grip tightened on the receiver. "About what?" "You know about what?" "The Carson case. Ramirez's confession. Meet me. Tonight." "Where?" "The fishing pier at Lakeside Park. 1 hour. Come alone." The line went dead. Noah thought about his options. Refusing would likely drive Sullivan underground. Meeting might yield information, perhaps even a confession. He called Vega, leaving a detailed message about the meeting. Then he texted his location to his chief deputy, with instructions to send help if he didn't check in by midnight.
The reckoning. The fishing pier extended 30 yards into the black water, its weathered boards creaking beneath Noah's feet. Sullivan was waiting at the end, his tall figure silhouetted against the distant lights of the city. "Noah," he said, his breath clouding in the cold air. "Thank you for coming. You said there were complexities to the Carson case. I'm listening." Sullivan turned to gaze out at the dark water. Ramirez was a good detective in many ways, but he had blind spots. His informants were untouchable. And when Detective Diaz brought you that witness statement, the one that pointed away from Jackson, Sullivan's shoulders tensed. "She brought it to me, yes. I told Ramirez about it. And he convinced me it wasn't credible, that all the other evidence pointed to Jackson." Sullivan turned to face Noah. "You have to understand the pressure we were under. A child murdered, the community demanding justice. So you buried evidence," Noah said flatly. "You helped Ramirez frame an innocent man. I made a judgment call based on the totality of the evidence as I understood it. And when Ramirez fabricated evidence, the necklace, the witness coaching, were those just judgment calls too?" Sullivan's expression hardened. "I didn't know about that, not then. But you learned about it later." A long pause. "Yes, and you said nothing, while Marcus Jackson spent 15 years in prison. By then, what good would it have done? The appeals had failed, double jeopardy had attached, And Willis was in the wind out of our jurisdiction. Noah felt a cold anger rising. It would have freed an innocent man. It would have allowed law enforcement to focus on Willis. It might have prevented other children from being harmed. Sullivan stepped closer. Think about what you're doing, Noah. This won't just bring down Ramirez's reputation. Or mine. It will taint every case we ever touched. Hundreds of convictions could be challenged. And your career will be over before it really begins. When the guardians of justice betray their oath, what remains of the system we trust to protect us? I can live with that. Can you? Everything you've worked for. Your campaign. Your future. Noah felt the weight of the choice before him. Sullivan was right about one thing. Pursuing this would have far-reaching consequences. But Marcus Jackson had spent 15 years in prison for a crime he didn't commit. I've already informed Agent Vega about this meeting, Noah said, and I've reviewed the trial transcripts. You didn't just fail to disclose the witness statement. You actively misled the court when Jackson's attorney requested all witness interviews. That's prosecutorial misconduct. Sullivan's expression darkened. Don't be naive. You have a promising future. Don't throw that away on some misguided crusade. It's not a crusade. It's my job, to seek justice, not just convictions. Very noble, Sullivan said, his tone hardening. But what about your own role in all this? You were second chair at that trial. Never once questioned the evidence. I didn't know it was fabricated. Didn't you? Never had any doubts? You were ambitious, Noah. Eager to win. Eager to make a name for yourself. You saw what you wanted to see. The accusation struck home. Had he been willfully blind? Had his ambition made him complicit? You're right, Noah admitted. I should have questioned it more, and I'll live with that failure for the rest of my life. But I can't compound it by staying silent now. Sullivan studied him for a long moment. Then he reached into his coat and withdrew an envelope. I thought you might say that, so I brought insurance. He handed Noah the envelope. Inside was a single photograph, Noah and Ramirez examining what could only be the fabricated necklace. That puts you in the room, Noah. Makes you part of the conspiracy. I've kept it all these years, just in case. Noah stared at the photo. He had been in Ramirez's office, had seen the necklace before it was logged into evidence, but he hadn't known it was fake. This proves nothing except that I was present when Ramirez showed me evidence. But who will believe you? Walk away, Noah. Drop the investigation. Tell the SBI that the anonymous letter was a hoax. For a moment, Noah saw the path Sullivan was offering. A return to certainty, to the upward trajectory his career had been on just weeks ago. But he knew he couldn't live with himself. I'm sorry, Michael, I can't do that. Sullivan's expression hardened. Then I'll release this photo. I'll tell the world you knew about the evidence tampering from the beginning. I'll destroy you. No, came a voice from the darkness behind them. You won't. Agent Vega stepped onto the pier, recording device in hand. That was an impressive confession, Judge Sullivan, and a clear attempt to obstruct justice through blackmail. Sullivan's face went slack with shock. You recorded this? That's inadmissible. In court, perhaps, Vega agreed, but in a judicial misconduct hearing, this recording will be quite effective. Sullivan turned to Noah, betrayal etched in his face. You set yourself up 15 years ago when you chose career over justice. I'm just making sure you can't keep burying the truth. The exoneration hearing took place in the same courtroom where Jackson had been convicted. Judge Rebecca Chen presided, known for her meticulous attention to detail and unwavering commitment to procedural integrity. Noah rose when called upon. Your Honor, the state of Pennsylvania moves to vacate the conviction of Marcus Jackson and dismiss all charges with prejudice. New evidence conclusively establishes that Mr. Jackson did not murder Lily Carson. He detailed the findings of the investigation, the DNA evidence, Ramirez's confession, Sullivan's obstruction, and the identification of Raymond Willis as the actual perpetrator. Furthermore, the state acknowledges that this wrongful conviction resulted not from error, but from deliberate misconduct. For this grave injustice, the state offers its profound apology to Mr. Jackson. Marcus Jackson rose to address the court, his posture straight, his expression controlled. 15 years ago, I stood in this room and heard myself declared guilty of a crime I did not commit. I've had 15 years to think about what I would say if this day ever came. I want to say I forgive those who did this to me. But I'm not there yet. Today I just want to say this. Remember my name. Remember what happened to me. And make sure it never happens to anyone else. Judge Chen brought down her gavel. The conviction of Marcus Jackson is hereby vacated, and all charges are dismissed with prejudice. Mr. Jackson, you are free to go. As the crowd dispersed, Jackson approached Noah. Thank you, he said, for doing the right thing, even if it came 15 years too late. I'm sorry, Noah replied, more than I can express. Jackson nodded, accepting the apology for what it was, inadequate but sincere. What happens now, he asked, to Sullivan, to the others. Sullivan faces criminal charges. The police department is reviewing every case Ramirez ever touched, and the state attorney general has appointed a special prosecutor to investigate the entire matter. And you Your career. Noah gave a small, rueful smile. My campaign is over. As for my position as DA, that remains to be seen. Jackson studied him for a moment longer. Good luck with that, Mr. Harrington. He extended his hand. Noah took it, the handshake brief but firm. No absolution, but perhaps the beginning of something like respect. As Noah left the courthouse, slipping out through a service entrance to avoid the reporters, he found Agent Vega waiting beside his car. Quite a day, she said. One of many to come, Noah replied. Willis has been indicted for Lily Carson's murder. The special prosecutor is interviewing everyone involved in the original case. The police commission is establishing new protocols for evidence handling. And you, what's next for Noah Harrington? Noah looked back at the courthouse where he had spent his career pursuing a version of justice that he now realized had sometimes been more about winning than about truth. I don't know, he admitted. I'm not sure there's a place for me in this system anymore. Vega considered him thoughtfully. Maybe the system needs people who've seen its failures up close, who understand the cost of getting it wrong. As he drove home, the weight of the past weeks settled over him. His political aspirations were gone. His professional reputation transformed overnight from rising star to cautionary tale. But he had helped free an innocent man, had helped expose a rot within the system he had served his entire career. It wasn't redemption. Nothing could fully redeem the role he had played, however unwittingly, in Marcus Jackson's wrongful conviction. But it was a beginning. Noah's phone buzzed with a text from Sophia, Washington. Jackson family would like to meet with you next week to discuss reforms to prevent this from happening to others. Interested? He typed back one word, yes. The past couldn't be changed. 15 years couldn't be returned to Marcus Jackson. The damage done to public trust couldn't be instantly repaired. But tomorrow was another day, another chance to get it right,